Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. La idea mía es presentarles a Scott. Scott ha sido parte de nuestra compañía durante los últimos 12 años. Su rol principal hoy es como director de Business Development en Agricen, que es una compañía que pertenece al grupo Nutrien, especializada principalmente en lo que es biotecnología. Scott trabaja a través del mundo liderando un poco el desarrollo de estos productos de Agricen, que están muy asociados, ya lo van a ver en la presentación, a la eficiencia de los fertilizantes. Anteriormente a esta posición, Scott tuvo un rol muy importante en Estados Unidos, en el Corn Belt, donde él lideró unas 200 centros de venta de nuestra compañía y fue el encargado de desarrollar no solamente los productos de Agricen, sino de los de Loveland Product, que es otra de las compañías asociadas a Nutrien. Scott tiene 25 años de experiencia en el agro y además junto a su hermano y a su familia es productor agropecuario, principalmente enfocado en lo que es producción de maíz en Illinois. Así que tiene una vasta experiencia en lo que es producción de maíz. Así que bueno, le damos la bienvenida a Scott y que comience la presentación. Gracias.
Nico, gracias por la presentación. Buenas tardes. My Spanish will stop there. It occurred to me as Nico was making the introduction, do you ever have the instances where yourself in today would give yourself from some prior time advice, a discussion with yourself? The thought occurred to me that as a mid-40-something-year-old man, if I could go back in time to where I was a 16-year-old farm boy from Illinois sitting in a Spanish class, I would have told the 16-year-old version of myself to pay attention because at some point you will be in the middle of Argentina talking to a group of agriculturists about how to raise better crops. But nonetheless, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. This is week 2 of my stay in South America, and I've certainly enjoyed the hospitality, and more importantly as it relates to our profession, all of our profession, agriculture. It's been very insightful for me to learn more about the production practices that you employ in your country. Obviously, as Nico indicated, I am a part of the Nutrien organization, and to many of you, you may scratch your head and ask just who exactly is Nutrien. Nutrien is came about earlier this year as a result of a merger of 2 global corporations. Our predecessor company and parent company, Agrium, based in Calgary, Canada, world headquarters, merged with another Canadian-based organization, which we referred to as PCS, the Potash Corporation of Saskatchewan. So today, Nutrien is a global provider of crop inputs. We live today in a global economy. Agriculture is certainly no exception to that. And again, as you look to I need to make sure we're oriented here correctly. On the left side of the slide, it speaks to the global nature of our organization. Our part of the business, Nutrien Ag Solutions, is where we provide retail crop inputs to growers across all of North America, this continent, South America, as well as Australia. As you move to the right-hand side of the slide, the other component to our business, we are a global producer of fertilizer components, the largest producer of fertilizer components. And you can see, as the slide indicates, globally we are responsible for 34 million tons of fertilizer production. Again, our retail business today consists of 1,500 retail facilities across the globe. I'm from the United States. We have about 1,000 of those 1,500 retail branches there. In this continent, we have 63 or 65 facilities, 40 of which reside in Argentina. We also have operations in Chile, Uruguay, and Brazil. Again, I think this slide is more to give you some semblance of order of how the operation or organization works. The parent company, as indicated previously, is Nutrien. We're split into two separate businesses. The nutrient N-P&K production, or what we refer to as our wholesale fertilizer business, is responsible for the production of fertilizer and distributing those nutrients across the globe. We are a part of, Nico and I, the Nutrient Ag Solutions component of the company, as indicated earlier. We operate across the United States, Canada, Australia, and in the 4 countries in South America. Nico and I are, again, as he indicated, for the last 12 years I was a part of the Loveland Products organization. Loveland Products is our products and innovation-related component to the company. And we have different Loveland organizations associated with each of our retail businesses today. Well, today I work across the globe in introducing new fertilizer, catalyst, and biostimulant technologies. I put this slide in simply for a frame of reference. Again, I am a person, I think these last several days, every time we got in a vehicle and left from Rosario to go to Villa Maria, I would ask which direction we were going. I think it's the innate farmer in me. But I live in a place called Illinois, right, 2 hours south of Chicago. So for the 6 years prior to the role I'm in now, I had responsibility or worked across half of our business in the United States, or as I refer to it, the good part. In that geography that extends from roughly Ohio in the east to Colorado in the west, is the part of the United States that grew roughly 80% of the corn, soybeans, and wheat in the United States. So again, that was the last 6 years of my life, and today on to different ventures. That was me. Loveland Technologies, a quick overview. Let me back up. As we look at plant biostimulants and fertilizer catalyst, we have several different technology platforms. The first of which is fertilizer biocatalysts, or biochemical type components that today we are adding to fertilizer ingredients to enhance the efficiency of nutrients in the soil. The second unique technology to the Loveland Products portfolio is that of acetate. In Argentina in particular, we use that zinc ammonium acetate in numerous fashions as seed treatments, foliar utilizations, and also with fertilizer to enhance efficiency. And inositol and plant growth regulators, PGRs, are synthetic-based biostimulants that in the States we've introduced in the last 6 to 7 years. Oftentimes, if you open a farm publication or read online, there's a lot of discussion and increasing amount of utilization of plant growth stimulants, biostimulants, as a means to augment crop production. So today, for the purposes of the next 30 minutes or thereabouts, we'll briefly overview what's in our portfolio, and not necessarily from a product standpoint, but just to give you a base level of understanding of what we're attempting to do as it relates to innovation and utilization of fertilizer biocatalysts in the biochemical space, and then plant growth regulators and plant growth hormones. Topics to cover, I guess, this is what it is. Again, in the biocatalyst category, the trade name is accomplished, but I think moreover we want to familiarize you with the practice and the value of enhancing nutrient efficiency. The second bullet there is a plant growth hormone, or a series of plant growth hormone products that we fashioned together to stimulate root and plant vegetative development. And then the last technology we'll touch on is exciting as well, and it's based in inositol that really we paired with targeted and specific micronutrients for a given crop to elicit a more positive response and aid in mobilization of nutrients within the plant. Gentlemen, and again, as Nico indicated, I live in Illinois, and I think universities in our country, just as they are here, are a foundation of providing research into new practices and trends related to production agriculture. Our state or our country is no different. Dr. Fred Bilo is a crop physiologist who our organization has worked with for some 10 to 15 years. I like Fred because he's relative to today's production practices. He speaks to, it's not as though practices today in your country have evolved in the last 30 years. They have in the States as well. We're beyond the time where it's simply more nutrients is the answer, or the next seed is the answer. And I'm not sure how that happened. Sorry about that. And we're back. But Fred likes to, and he does a lot of his research to support this thesis, and his point is simply this: it's a systems approach. There's not one single, as we would say in the States, silver bullet or magic potion, but it's a combination of practices, both related to fertility, disease management, tillage, the management of nutrients, the management of disease, insects, and weeds that will produce a more positive result. Again, it doesn't matter if you're from Iowa or Argentina, your objectives are all farmers' objectives are the same, and that is to maximize production, increase yields. As you're well aware, it doesn't happen by accident. So it's a part of it is what Mother Nature provides us. Can't always change that. Actually, we can't change that at all. But it's how that intersects with production practices, a series of systematically planned production practices that will produce the most consistent results the highest percentage of the time. So I think I like to start any kind of discussion recognizing it's a systems approach that will yield the best response in the end. Across the Loveland Products Agrocin organization, I think it's important to recognize, and we've had several discussions today, there are a number of viable companies across the globe in Argentina that provide quality products. I would like to think our family of companies is certainly one of those. But I think it's also important to recognize that the foundation and importance of good, solid academic research, and not just from academic institutions, but also government-based institutions and third-party research. Across the states, we've been engaged with nearly 30 universities across the United States for almost nearly the last 10 years. You can see where they are plotted across the map. There's another group of, and again, they've been doing crop-based research. That next group of green dots, or green plots on the map, have been engaged in turf and ornamental type research. And then the last blue dots aren't universities, but private, well, there's R&D groups. There's the last group. Private organizations, third-party research companies, again, that have provided a level of crop-based research and or lab-based research that help to validate our technologies and have really helped us to learn to a great extent how to best utilize them in concert with modern production practices to enhance the results. In total, in excess of 1,000 studies, trials, have been conducted over the period of the last 8 years, again, giving us a high degree of confidence as an organization in the efficacy and consistency of our products, and that is shown through our commercial organization as we've seen the adoption rate in actual production practices with our farmers. I think it's important to recognize when we talk about the bottom, biochemical fertilizer catalyst, what the heck are we talking about? And it's you know, in general terms, there are different technologies available today and forthcoming that will help to enhance fertilizer efficiency. Dr. Garcia, where are you? I saw you walk in. We had a discussion shortly before we came in here. And we start with the supposition, or not supposition, but the belief that step one is assuring that you have adequate soil levels of nutrition in the soil. That's step one. But that doesn't mean the job is done. Step two really is how you enhance those nutrients being applied to the soil by either protecting what you are applying or ensuring that more in a plant-available form for uptake and to maximize yield. As we scan the environment of materials or technologies that are available today, the first box is related to nitrogen. And I was told by our translator, meter out is a term that I may have to help with the translation. And really, it's to dose the material or nitrogen into the plant. A number of those technologies are available today. Environmentally smart nitrogen from the Nutrient Organization is among them. Nitrogen stabilizers would be the next category. Those are available across the globe in the United States in the form of nitropyrin is used quite frequently. But also perhaps the one that would be utilized to the greatest extent here is urease inhibitor, the active ingredient MBPT, serves a valuable role in minimizing the amount of surface volatilization of urea that takes place to ensure you have more nitrogen available for your growing corn or wheat, your grass crops. The biostimulants, we talked in general terms about them earlier, but what are they? They're products either naturally based or synthetic based that stimulate specific hormonal responses in a plant. They could be derived from organic acids. They could be derived, there are a number of materials actually encountered in the last week here in South America, derives from such materials as seaweed kelp that help minimize stresses in a plant to maximize the result. And again, viable products that are available today that we're working on refining as we go forward. The next group, microbial products. How many here in the room have heard of or are familiar with any microbial products available in Argentina today? Microbial products. I have to wait for the translation a little bit. They're certainly available today, and there's some that are viable. But again, we refer to them somewhat jokingly as bugs in a jug. They're live materials, live microbes or bacterium in a jug. And there are certainly some limitations relative to stability of and longevity of those materials as it relates to crop production. The last component there, the biochemical, our materials are derived from natural feedstocks. They're designed to stimulate a nutrient or bacterial response. They're not live microbes, however. They are metabolites that are extracted from a multiple stage process to elicit specific responses in a plant. Quickly, and I won't read all of these to you, but I think, although they're in English, so maybe I should, what do we know, what are characteristics of the biochemical components, and what might you be able to expect of them in the field? We know that they're active at very low concentrations. That's important, effective across a wide range of soil types. Some of the research we'll present to you specific to Argentina will underlie that in a moment. Highly resistant to other herbicides, and they are won't provide or won't create antagonistic type effects when employed with crop protection products. Very flexible in terms of usage. And then again, I think that last point is significant. They're designed through research to induce or create a specific response in the plant to either stimulate root development and or help release nutrients that may be bound in the soil. So what? They're available. We can talk about low use rates. When nutrients are tied up in the soil, they're not available for crop. These help over time to release nutrients that may be engaged by calcium, metals, and limited by pH. And again, as indicated before, tank mixable with a broad range of crop protection products. In simple terms, when the metabolites of biochemistry are fashioned into a product, they're concentrated biochemistry. What are they? They're a series of organic acids and amino acids, chelating agents, and metabolites of in excess of 500 different strains of bacterium that when applied to the soil solution, what are we trying to do? We're trying to accelerate the level or rate of nutrient mineralization in the plant. As I found out, and I don't know if my pointer is working, maybe it's not, one of the primary limiting factors is we found across Argentina, these are highly calcareous soils. High levels of calcium with a double positive charge engage very easily with phosphorus, which is a double negative charge. I wasn't a chemistry major in college, but I do know a double negative and a double positive is generally not good if you're a corn plant or a wheat plant for that matter. So as over time, as the material is applied to the soil surface and Mother Nature by way of rain is able to matriculate the material into the germination zone in those top 3 to 4 inches, which I suppose would translate to 8 to 15 centimeters in that zone of fertility where it matters. Over time, that calcium and phosphorus naturally separates. More nutrients are available to that plant. You're able to improve your soil tilth. Oftentimes, compaction is a limiting factor in crop production. While this isn't magic, over time what we've seen is when you increase the aeration or level of aeration in the soil, you're able to increase productivity. In simple terms, this isn't magic, as I indicated before, but how in the world would I employ such a technology? This may be impregnated, applied to any range of dry fertilizer materials that you may employ in your farm. MAP, DAP, or any forms of phosphate in concert with urea. I recognize there's not a high level of potash applied here, but across the United States where we've utilized this material, about 40% of our dry fertilizer materials receive this application. And again, the interest is how do we make the nutrients more efficient? We've had a high level of success. This is indicated in a prior slide. We've done work with roughly 30 universities across the United States. I think this is a study we oftentimes go back to demonstrate the utility or value of this material. Across the top, you can obviously see the range of nutrients from primary nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. As we proceed left to right, we move into the micronutrients onto the second row. These levels, numbers articulated, are simply percentages expressed in the tissue of corn is the plant. The untreated or control is MESC. It's a material from Mosaic, a global fertilizer supplier. 12% nitrogen, 40% phosphorus, no potash, 10% sulfur, and some zinc. It's a MAP-like material with sulfur and zinc embedded on the fertilizer prill. What Mosaic was concerned with is there are some materials on the market today in the States that are additives to dry fertilizer that when applied to a material like MESZ, it would actually bind or limit the availability of zinc, which is significant in many soils, Argentinian soils among them. So what we wanted to ascertain is if we added our biochemistry material, what impact did it have on the nutrient levels expressed in the plant? Certainly a higher level of a given nutrient in the plant is positive. So across the board from nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, calcium, magnesium, and on, we saw increased levels of the nutrient expression in the plant. That's positive. As we move to the second level, for some reason there was less iron expressed in the plant. Not really sure why, but again, in the grand scheme of things of all the nutrients, I'm not terribly worried about the level of iron in my corn plant. But on a consistent basis, what did it do with respect to zinc, which is the original intent of the research? It increased the level of zinc as it did virtually all of the nutrients. Those last two metrics there begin to speak to or understanding how the biochemistry impacts a plant, and thus we get a more positive response. This first one there is it's the amount of root surface area. Certainly it goes without saying, if you have more root surface area, you have greater ability to intercept water and nutrients. The second one perhaps is what is important and perhaps more important, and that's the number of feeder tip roots. Again, more feeder tips, if you increase the number of feeder tip roots by 40%, your ability to intercept nutrients goes up significantly. When we did this research, again, we had a pretty good sense of what the material did in a plant, but this helped document higher levels of nutrient expression in a plant, more root mass, more root structure. We have the ability to increase yields or enhance yields. I recognize, again, regardless of where you may farm, at the end of the day, return on investment is what you're in business for, or what any farmer's in business for. This is research, help me Nico, how many different data points? 32? 96. Oh, I'm sorry, that's by crop. Barley, corn, soybeans, and wheat across Argentina conducted over the last 3 years. By crop, a 9% increase when employed on the 2 trials in barley. 36 trials in corn where the average net increase was 4.5%. Soybeans, you can see at 3%. Wheat increased in excess of 8%. Get a sense for up in the upper right in the box, the breadth of who was conducting the research for us. Anytime you involve an organization like INTA, which certainly enhances our credibility and of results, we're really pleased with what we've seen. What I would tell you is relative to the states, again, we treat 40% of the fertilizer there, so have a pretty good sense of the consistency of what this will do. The results on corn and soybeans would be very similar to what we've seen in the states. As I shared with our group here in the last couple of days, the results on wheat in Argentina actually have been better than what we would experience in the states. So I think this gives us a very positive sense of confidence across 96 trials in 3 years in Argentina in terms of the level of return that one could expect. Next technology I'll touch on briefly is that of plant growth hormone. The brand is Radiate. That's not terribly important, but again, want to familiarize you with the practice. Radiate's a formulation or a combination of two plant growth hormones, IBA and kinetin. I will confess to you that 12 years ago, when I started with the organization, when we introduced the material first, not long after that, I was a skeptic. Again, I grew up in an environment, as many of you have. Is it a nutrient? No. Is it a herbicide? No. Well, what is it? It's a series of two plant growth hormones. I was a skeptic. I will confess. Today, I will tell you, now that it's treated on roughly 23 million hectares across the United States, and will be registered here, I believe, in the next year, this is among our most consistent performing products. And what's it do? I'll show you some pictures and research-based evidence in a moment. But this isn't treating the soil, it's impacting the plant. We're enhancing the early season vigor of the crop. We're promoting earlier or better, more robust root and shoot growth. When you do that, you have the ability to mitigate stresses, and that's positive. Some research we've done in our greenhouses that shows the plant growth hormones here, the untreated check. As you advance along, 2 days after, 3 days after application, 4, 5, 6, a week, 6 days after, you start to get a sense for the enhanced level of root mass that the material will stimulate. Again, that's important. Regardless of crop, regardless of growing environments or circumstances, more root mass equals better ability to intercept nutrients and water. The inset at the bottom right then shows in a close-up level, it's really fine root hairs that we're enhancing. So again, I would tell you if you're considering utilizing plant growth hormone type materials, we hope it's ours when we get ours registered, but moreover, it's a positive and solid practice that will help mitigate stresses, particularly weather stresses, as time goes along. When could you apply it? And this holds true not just for our material, but a number of the plant growth hormones available. We call it generally in that early post-type time framing, prior to, whether it's corn or soybeans, but it's prior to flowering, prior to tassel and corn. And why is that? If you impact the plant earlier, greater vigor and root mass will figure into the equation to a greater extent. Some research done, and this is in the States. Again, the material isn't labeled here yet in Argentina, but this is across 10 states, 35 data points in corn, average response rate of 5% increase in yield. You get a sense for what kind of yield range. And then soybeans to the farther right, 62 data points experienced nearly an 8 or in excess of an 8% increase. Again, positively impacting a plant, reducing the ability for stresses to mitigate yield is a positive practice. Number of crops. We'll go to the last technology. NutriSync is, to put it quite simply, is nutrient transport technology. The unique material, proprietary material in it is called inositol. What does it do? It helps to, it says 3 words, assimilation, mobilization, utilization. In simple terms, it helps to mobilize nutrients within a plant. Again, just as we talked about applying nutrients to the soil is important, once they are in the soil and absorbed through either mass flow or diffusion, the extent to which you can mobilize nutrients in a plant makes a tremendous difference. Again, assimilation, the one that matters to me and I grab onto and I think is most significant is the ability to mobilize nutrients within a plant. And last but not least, the utilization. Give you a little flavor for some different angle in which we take in research, and this is from Dr. Patrick Brown, who had the opportunity to meet over the last several years from the University of California at Davis. What we wanted to try to identify is what impact does the inositol material have on nutrients within a given crop. Again, applying a nutrient to a foliar leaf surface is not bad, but if it's not being properly or adequately utilized rather by the plant, perhaps we're not getting enough value or enough value as we could. This is it's the cross section of a rice plant. And imagine rice, while not grown in Argentina, the architecture of it is somewhat similar to trigo, to wheat. So when nutrients are applied at certain times, they can get stopped or slowed or concentrated at the nodes. So this is a cross-section of a rice plant at the node. The control is here, and with infrared technology, we can then determine, this happens to be zinc, to what extent did it mobilize throughout the plant, and or at this point, the node, where the inositol plus zinc is applied, you can see, pardon me, there's a high level of concentration where the zinc is applied. Within that node, it wasn't adequately dispersed throughout the plant. What we discovered is with the inositol in concert or used with the zinc, we're able to mobilize it through the node, get it to the growing seed head, and impact the performance to a greater extent. This then is a cross-section if you slice a rice kernel in half. The embryo, the endosperm, and pericarp is indicated there, but I think what's important to recognize here, so think of this as wheat for a moment. In a wheat kernel, where you want a higher level of concentration of a given nutrient within the kernel. Why? Primarily, it may enhance test weight, number one, but also seed quality. So at least as it relates to zinc, if we can allow it to move more readily within the plant vascular tissue and then get a higher level of concentration in the forming seed, the effect of that is positive. This is actually some work we did Nico added to this in Uruguay from last year. As you can see by the nature of the shape, it's a circle pivot. It was corn. We did some tissue sample, or Echelon is our precision farming application across our organization that allowed us to capture NDVI imagery, which you see. Nutriscription is a customized tissue sampling application. What we did here on the left-hand side are tissue samples from this area, the left-hand side, where something's happening. Number two is a tissue sample from the right-hand side. What we saw, there was a tremendous difference in particularly potash. As Nico indicated to me, these large areas of red, generally speaking, were more compacted soils. Not sure why they were compacted necessarily, but they were compacted, which makes sense. Less aeration in the soil. The academics in our country call it the tiling effect of potash. Less ability to move it in the plant. So this is an application area in the upper portion, the NutriSync technology. This happens to be a foliar potash. We were addressing the deficiency of potash. This is the area left unapplied. That's after application. Again, you can recognize where it is. So we went back after the material was applied. We're able to see the difference that an application of supplemental potash and the NutriSync material made to impact tissue levels of nutrients in a plant. As it was indicated to me, we didn't obtain yield results from that, but you can see what kind of difference supplemental nutrients applied in the time of need where you're able to identify a deficiency made to the NDVI imagery. Last but not least is some local yield results, 22 different data points we've done across Argentina on soybeans. Again, the ability to mobilize these micronutrients within the plant provided a very consistent return, an increase of 8%. Wind down here, and I think that what I'd leave you with is this. I think it's important as we look at maximizing crop production, each and every time you either apply a fertilizer material or crop protection product, the question I would challenge you to ask yourself is, what am I doing to enhance the efficiency of the nutrient being applied and or benefit the crop? So with dry fertilizer, there's certainly a number of different opportunities you have or options to enhance the efficiency of those applied nutrients. A number of you, I presume, would ban dry fertilizer materials at planting or close to planting. We have an opportunity to impact nutrient availability there. Nitrogen, certainly within grass crops, nitrogen can be a limiting factor. Protecting nitrogen from surface or surface volatilization is certainly a positive practice. Last but not least, as you apply foliar nutrients, foliar herbicides rather, you have an opportunity to impact the plant in a positive fashion. Treat the soil to impact nutrient efficiency or nutrient availability in a plant. Treat the plant to impact the vigor and or development of that plant. Together, it's a very positive consistency. I think as I wrap up, I look at two things, and it's, or one thing actually, whether you are a grower tasked with increasing your yields or you work for a Nutrien Ag Solutions or anyone, all parties involved have a mutual objective, and that is very simply to decrease one's input costs per unit of output, per kilogram of yield. As we found on numerous occasions in the states with challenging commodity prices, we understand it's easy to try to reduce input costs, and in some cases that may have merit. But overall, increasing the efficiency of fertilizer, increasing the productivity of the plant through strategic use of biostimulants and fertilizer enhancement products will provide a more consistent result. Last but not least, and I think as I think about innovation, Henry, I found this quote some time ago. Of course, Henry Ford, in the early parts of the 20th century, revolutionized transportation in our country, and it quickly spread across the world. And Henry Ford, creator of or inventor of the Model T automobile, if I'd asked people what they had wanted, they would have told me faster horses. Again, faster horses and applying the right amount of nutrients and improved seeds is certainly a part of it. But also ask you, as you think about your respective farming operations, the new innovations, new technologies that are being introduced by our company, our organization, and others are certainly worthy of consideration and will help increase our productivity as we go forward. I'm at 34 minutes, so I think we need to close down and open up for questions, correct? So I think, Nico, will you translate, or how are we going to do that? Questions? Do we have a mic, or do we just raise hands? How do you want to do that?
Uno. ¿Alguien quiere preguntar? Piden el micrófono.
Scott, la pregunta que yo tengo es si uno puede superponer las tecnologías en un mismo cultivo. Si puede poner un microbiológico, un acetato o un inositol.
Can you? With respect to the three we talked about, can all be used in a given crop? Yes. Certainly, do you have to? No. But each serves a specific purpose. The biocatalyst technology to mineralize and release nutrients in the soil, the plant growth hormone materials to stimulate root development. The inositol helps mobilize nutrients. So, yeah, generally speaking, we've seen very positive response when multiple technologies are employed together. Thank you. It's a good question. Anything else?
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Gentleman in the back.
Nico, no, solo para entender mejor, había abajo a un pie de una tabla una restricción de 25 kilos de urea para la cómplice, ¿era eso? Que no se podía usar más.
Accomplish when with urea. Typically, because urea doesn't readily absorb any liquid that well, we'd like to make sure. Yeah, we'd like to make sure that the urea in a mix with phosphorus doesn't exceed 50 to 60%, because then the amount, it gets sloppy, the mix. The urea isn't able to absorb all the liquid material. Yes, sir.
Y, por ejemplo, en un año malo como el de este en Argentina, con poca agua, si nosotros le agregamos esos productos, no, al hacer más raíces la planta no desgasta mucho más y no perjudica en el rinde.
I think our experience is somewhat different. That when a crop, corn, soybeans, wheat, doesn't matter, is prone to weather-induced stress, heat and/or drought, that a more robust root system is able to withstand the stress more readily. And again, back to more root surface area, ability to intercept more nutrients. Again, will it keep a crop alive through extreme drought? No. But the general vigor and/or health of the plant, what we found is able to withstand a droughty type condition better.
¿Alguna pregunta más?
Last one.
Nico, quería preguntarle a Scott si ellos esperan que estos productos nos lleven a mayores niveles de rendimiento o que simplemente mejoren la eficiencia de uso de nutrientes, por ejemplo, con los cuales ya estamos trabajando.
I don't know. I would go back to step one is making sure there are adequate levels of a nutrient in the soil. So I am not necessarily, in our family farm operation, our objective is not to reduce fertilizer rates. Perhaps you can from time to time, but in the long term, you're robbing your future crops. So I think I view it, Dr. Garcia, as more of a complement to aid in the efficiency of the nutrients being applied. One more. Una más.
Bueno, ¿cómo se comporta los productos esta tecnología frente a la fertilización en ambientes con planteos defensivos, con alta demanda climática como en el norte argentino?
Great question. And believe it or not, that question, that's not the first time I've heard that. My observation is we traveled, put your headphone back on. Poor guy that asked the question won't be able to hear the response. Ready? Okay. Not the first time I've heard the question, and it's insightful. What we found actually, the areas of the states where the fertilizer material impregnation has actually been adopted more or at a higher rate are in places like the Dakotas in the upper northernmost reaches of our country, in Kansas, where it's more of a corn, wheat, cereal grain rotation, and the lower CE cation exchange capacity, lower organic matter, lesser productive areas. I would, and again, it's not to say that in highly productive areas we don't see a difference, because we do, but again, where soil organic matter or CEC are limiting factors, which that's what impedes the ability of a crop to yield, getting greater efficiency out of the nutrients you're applying is actually, you'll see a larger proportional response, is what I'm saying. Great question.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos por haber asistido, a Nicolás, a Scott, a Nutrient Ag Solutions por acompañarnos. Buenas tardes para todos.